Today we've got a massive Helldivers 2 patch that we need to discuss. This patch is going to change a lot of metas and a lot of loadouts. So let's get into it right away because I'm actually really excited about this. So this is patch 1.000.300. Overview. For this patch, we have made improvements and changes to the following areas. Balance changes to weapons, stratagems, and enemies, and change to spread democracy missions. So yeah, this is a big one. This is a big patch. This is something that it's going to change a lot of stuff for people. So let's get into it. So general balancing changes. Armors with armor ratings above 100 now also reduce damage on headshots. So yeah, armor ratings above 100 are now a little bit more powerful. Victory poses will now only play for the extracted, so it doesn't really matter. Now we got primary, secondary, and support weapon changes. The CB9 exploding crossbow, slightly smaller explosions, increased stagger, decreased number of maximum mags from 12 to 8, increased number of magazines received from resupply from 6 to 8, slight reduction in ergonomics, and muzzle velocity was increased. So those are some slight changes, but honestly, the slightly smaller explosion damage means that this is a lot less effective, in my opinion, for big groups. Next up, we've got the last 99 Quasar Cannon. Increased recharge time by 5 seconds. That is a pretty big increase, in my opinion. Now we've got the BR-14 Adjuncticator. Full auto is now the default fire mode. I like that. Reduced recoil. Increased minimum mags from 6 to 8. That's good. Increased number of magazines received from resupply from 6 to 8. Now placed amongst assault rifles. So this gun got a good bit more powerful, honestly. The reduced recoil is pretty big. That increase mag size, that's pretty big too, honestly. Or, sorry, the increase in maximum mag size is pretty big. So, yeah. BR-14's looking a little bit better. The laser cannon slightly increased damage and slightly reduced damage versus large volume bodies. So it could be better. It really depends on those increases. The SG-8P Punisher Plasma decreased maximum mags from 12 to 8, increased amount of magazines received from resupply from 6 to 8, increased projectile speed but will still keep a similar range, decreased damage fall off on the explosions, and now placed in the energy weapons category. So this one I think this is a little bit of a bump. The decrease in minimum magazines does affect some players, but honestly, you've got to be pretty good to feel that. And they did increase the magazines received from resupplies, so that's pretty big. But yeah, increased projectile speed, decreased damage, fall off, those are two big ones. So I like it. The ARC-12 Blitzer increased shots per minute from 30 to 45. That is a huge increase, folks. That's like a 50% increase. So this weapon just got a lot more powerful. And now it's placed in the energy weapons category. The R-36 Eruptor decreased number of maximum magazines from 12 to 6. Explosion damage drops off slightly faster, so this one was nerfed a little bit. The last 16 Sickle decreased amount of magazines from 6 down to 3. So very slight nerf here. I don't think that really matters that much. The Sith increased damage from 300 to 350 and decreased the max number of mags from 6 down to 4. So this weapon got a little bit more powerful, and honestly, 300 to 350, that's a pretty decent jump, I'd say. Off the top of my head, doing some math, that's about 20%. I like that. And honestly, I like that gun, so I think that's going to be a little bit more my go-to, like when I'm using it, I guess. I don't know. That's a dumb statement. Railgun. Increased armor penetration in both safe mode and unsafe mode. Stagger force slightly reduced, so the railgun's going to be a lot better for armor. M101 heavy machine gun, third-person crosshair enabled. That's cool. Diligence counter sniper, damage increased from 128 to 140. Ergonomics improved. So the gun got buffed a little bit, but honestly, I still don't think it's that good of a gun. Diligence damage increased from 112 to 125. I don't know why I said 112. I'm a bit of a dumbass sometimes. I'm excited about this. I don't know if you can tell, but yeah. Again, that's pretty good. That's a little bit of a buff. Still don't think I'm going to use it, but hey, it is what it is. P19 Redeemer, slight increase in recoil, so a little bit of a nerf there, but don't think that'll matter. The Peacemaker increased damage from 60 to 75. That's pretty big. Senator increased damage from 150 to 175, so 25 damage increase. That's pretty huge when you're talking about a gun like this. You're looking, again, like probably 20%. I don't know if my math is right there. Someone correct me. Someone's going to correct me. You always correct me when I mispronounce stuff, so you should correct me here too. Speed loader. Added when reloading on an empty cylinder, speeds up reload at empty considerably. So this is going to be faster when the I don't know if this is still going to be faster than when it's not empty. So for those of you who don't know, I did do a tips and tricks video. And in this video, I looked at recoil, and it turns out if you leave a bullet in the chamber, it's actually a faster reload because you don't need to do the reload animation where you sort of pull back the guns, trigger, muzzle. I don't know what you want to call it. Someone correct me again. You guys correct me on everything. Everybody says I mispronounce things, which, yeah, I do. Fair enough. But yeah, like, that's, I don't know. I don't know. Is it going to now be faster, or is it just, we've got to play around with this one. We've got to play around with this one, but it seems like a buff. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a buff. What am I talking about? Increase the reload speed and increase the damage. I'm like, maybe it's a buff. No, it's definitely a buff. Dagger, increased damage from 150 to 200. That's a 25%. That's a 33% increase. Something like that. But no, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So Dagger got buffed quite a bit. Liberator damage increased from 55 to 60. Again, that's a bit of a buff, not a huge one. Liberator concussive damage increased from 55 to 65. So that's an even bigger buff. So the Liberator concussive, that's a pretty big jump. The Dominator damage decreased from 300 to 275. So you got a little bit of a nerf there. Guard Dog Rover decreased damage by 30%. The Guard Dog has been nerfed 30%. That is big. That is bigger than my you-know-what, folks. Guard Dog slightly increased in damage. Yeah, the Guard Dog Rover, that's a pretty significant drop, I'd say. Burning damage reduced by 15%. Now, for stratagems, the machine gun sentry increased health to match other sentries. So the machine gun now, it's more viable. Tesla Tower increased health by 33%. More viable. RL-77 Airburst rocket launcher. It will no longer detonate when shot near stratagems and other Helldivers, and a reduced proximity radius. So those of you who are nuking your whole team are no longer going to be able to do that without trying. You're now going to have to actually aim at people. Now, for the enemy adjustments. The Biospieler and Nursing Spieler's move speed was slightly reduced. Hulk's force required them to stagger slightly increased. Hulk's Scorcher direct flamethrower damage reduced by 20%. I like that because that flamethrower lights me up like no other. Devastator fire rate slightly increased, but that's only the standard Devastator. That's their note. Gunship sideways movement slightly increased. Scouts, Strider, Riders are now less vulnerable to explosion. Bog generators' health and armor increased. Gunship spawners now have a much lower cap on how many gunships they can have active at the same time. That's all good. So it looks like it's gotten a little bit easier, I'd say. Enemy patrols. Balancing adjustment to patrol spawning. Patrol spawning has been increased when there are fewer than 4 players. The fewer players, the bigger the change. For 4-player missions, there will be no change compared to before. The biggest notable change will be for solo players at higher difficulties. So it's now even more viable if you're going to be going solo at a higher difficulty, so that's pretty good. So for gameplay, they made minor level generation improvements and how locations are distributed and all that. They added setting in the option menu, gameplay to disable automatic climbing and vaulting when sprinting. The Spread Democracy mission, otherwise known as Raise the Flag, can now be enjoyed on higher difficulties for maximum freedom spreading, which is what I call, some people call it man spreading. I call it showing my balls on the subway. They call it freedom spreading. It is what it is. When readying up, Helldivers now salute to ensure maximum democratic readiness. Why did I even put that in there? They added ambiance to tremor planetary hazards. Shots that ricochet from heavy armor enemies will now properly hit the Helldiver who fired them. So you're going to be hit more by ricochets. So that actually does matter a lot. So pay attention to that. They fixed a bunch of crashes. I'm not going to go over all those. It's a huge list. Honestly, shout out to them because that's pretty big. And then they said there's some known issues that they're still working on. Damage over time effects, reinforcements, and stuff like that. But we're not going to dive into that because I want to keep this video as short, sweet, and to the point as possible. I just want to go over the buffs and everything that is so important. If you do want to see the known issues and all of that, let me know, because I can do that in the next video or something like that. But yeah, I just don't want to waste anyone's time. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all the support these videos have been getting, and I hope you all have an amazing day. Keep spreading democracy. Peace.